At least, one of us will survive.
They say you know you're dying when the cold stops hurting. I learned that truth, face down in the snow, my fingers blue and useless, wrapped around a wolf cub I'd never met before. My last thought wasn't about my father who traded me like livestock, or Garrett who walked away without looking back, or even my sister Mira's stricken face as they dragged me away. My last thought was simple. Asterisk. At least one of us will survive this. I didn't know those golden eyes staring back at me belonged to a prince. I didn't know the roar that split the night was an alpha king finding his cursed son. I didn't know that my last act of pointless kindness would give me everything I'd been told I'd never deserve. But first, I had to die. Hey, family. Pause for just a second. If someone you loved looked you in the eye and told you that you weren't enough, that your love, your loyalty, your very existence was worthless, I need you to hear this. They lied. Not because they were confused, not because timing was wrong, but because they were too blind to see the treasure standing right in front of them. Right now, you might be replaying every moment, wondering what you could have done differently, wondering if maybe, just maybe, they were right about you. They weren't. Your worth was never up for debate. It was never determined by someone too broken to recognize gold when they held it. And the pain you're feeling right now? It's not weakness. It's proof you loved deeply, gave fully, and deserved infinitely better. Here's what they don't want you to know. You're going to rise from this. You're going to become so powerful, so whole, so undeniably radiant that they'll one day see what they lost, and by then, you'll be too busy living the life you deserve to even look back. Stay with me. This story is for you. Now let me tell you about the night I died in the snow, and the family I found on the other side of death. My name is Kira. For 23 years, I was the broken daughter of the Thornvale Pack, a wolf shifter who couldn't shift. In a world where your animal form determines your worth, your status, your very right to exist, I was something worse than human. I was a lie in flesh. A mistake my family tolerated because my sister Mira was perfect enough to make up for me. They called me barren, defective, worthless, and I believed them. I believed them when my father stood in that side room during Mira's engagement ceremony and told me I was being traded to pay a debt. 3,000 gold pieces, or a daughter, and the daughter they could afford to lose was me. I believed them when Garrett, the man who'd courted me for 3 months, pulled me into the winter night and said he couldn't do it anymore, that I wasn't enough without a wolf, that his father said he needed a proper asterisk mate. I believed them when the tax collector, a wiry man named Silas with dead eyes, looked me over like livestock and said, "Can't shift. That's unfortunate. Still, she's young enough. Might get some use out of her in the breeding halls." I believed them because that's what you do when everyone you've ever known agrees you're broken. The journey north took 3 days in chains. On the third night, the blizzard hit. Silas dragged me into a shallow cave, more concerned with his horses than his cargo. I huddled against the stone wall. My dress, Mira's old dress, pale blue and too tight in the shoulders, soaked through. My body shook so hard my teeth rattled. "Might not make it through the night," Silas observed, rolling over to sleep. "Oh well, can't be helped." That's when I heard it. A whimper. High and desperate. Coming from outside the cave. I should have ignored it. I was barely alive myself. But that sound, that terrible, lonely sound, it cut through my numbness like a blade. I knew that sound. I was that sound. So I crawled. Out into the blizzard, into the wall of white and wind and killing cold. And there, pinned beneath a fallen branch, was a small black wolf cub. His golden eyes met mine. Too bright, too aware. Too human to be just an animal. It's okay, I whispered through chattering teeth, wedging my shoulder under the branch. I've got you. One final push. The branch shifted. The cub pulled free. And then my strength gave out completely. I collapsed face first into the snow, the world already fading at the edges. The cold stopped hurting. That's how you knew. The cub nuzzled my face, making desperate sounds, but I couldn't move anymore. My eyes blurred. My heart slowed. Asterisk. At least I saved someone, I thought distantly. Asterisk. At least I did one thing that mattered. The last thing I saw was the cub's golden eyes beginning to glow, not with reflected light, but with something ancient and powerful and utterly impossible. And then a roar split the night, not a wolf's howl. A roar of pure, undiluted fury. The Alpha King had found his son. And me, dying in the snow beside him. Hello, family. Welcome to my channel. Before we go deeper into what happened when I opened my eyes in that castle, when I learned the cub was a cursed prince, and his father was the most powerful alpha in the territories, I need something from you. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. It matters to me. You matter to me. Hit that like button if you've ever been called broken, worthless, or not enough. Subscribe, because this story gets more impossible, more beautiful, and more painful before it gets better. And I promise you, the way it ends will remind you why you're still here, still fighting, still believing you deserve more. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their worth was never determined by the people who failed to see it. Drop your thoughts below. Have you ever been traded, dismissed, or cast aside by people who were supposed to love you? Have you ever saved something, or someone, when you yourself were dying? Your story matters. I see you. Now let me tell you what happened when I woke up in the beast's castle. Warmth. That was the first thing I registered when consciousness dragged me back from the edge of death. Not the pleasant warmth of summer sun or hearth fire, but the aggressive, almost painful warmth of a body that had forgotten what heat felt like. My fingers burned. My toes screamed. Every inch of skin prickled with the agony of frozen flesh, remembering it was supposed to be alive. I tried to open my eyes and couldn't. They were crusted shut, lashes frozen together. She's waking! A woman's voice, soft and frightened. Leave us. A man's voice, deep and cold as a winter river. Footsteps retreated quickly. A door closed with a heavy finality that made my chest tighten with instinctive fear. I forced my eyes open. The room was vast and beautiful in a way that felt aggressive. White marble, silver filigree, enormous windows showing grey sky. A fire roared in a hearth large enough to stand in. I was buried in furs on a bed that could have fit 6 people, and standing at the foot of that bed, backlit by the window, was the largest man I had ever seen. No, not a man, an alpha. Everything about him radiated power. The breadth of his shoulders, the predatory stillness of his stance, the weight of his presence that pressed against my chest, even from across the room. His hair was black as midnight, worn long enough to brush his collar. His face was all brutal angles, sharp jaw, blade-straight nose, high cheekbones carved from granite. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Gold. Pure molten gold. Exactly like the cub. The cub, I croaked, voice raw. Is he— My son is alive, he said, each word precisely enunciated, carefully controlled. Thanks to you. Asterisk son. Asterisk. The cub had been his son, which meant this was— You're the Alpha King. It wasn't a question. Theron Blackwater, king of the Northern Summit territory. He moved closer, each step measured and deliberate. And you are the broken she-wolf who nearly died, saving my heir. The word asterisk, broken asterisk, landed like a physical blow. Of course he knew. Of course, that would be the first thing anyone told him about me. I didn't know he was your son, I said, trying to push myself upright. My arms shook with the effort. I just heard him crying and You crawled out into a blizzard while dying of exposure yourself. His voice was utterly flat, emotionless. Why? Does it matter? Yes. I met those golden eyes and saw no warmth in them, no gratitude, just cold calculation and something that might have been suspicion. Because I understood what it felt like, I said simply, to be trapped and alone and dying while the world ignored you. Something flickered across his face, too fast to identify. He moved to the window, putting distance between us. You've been unconscious for 3 days, he said. My healers weren't certain you would wake. Severe frostbite, hypothermia, malnourishment, dehydration. Your body had started to shut down. 3 days. Silas would be long gone. Would he report me dead? Would my family even care? The man who had you, Theron continued, voice dropping into something darker. Where is he? I don't know. He was taking me north to... I stopped. Did it matter where Silas had been taking me? You were payment for a debt. He turned back to face me, and there was something terrible in his expression. Your father's debt, meant for the breeding halls, or worse. I said nothing. What was there to say? He knew the truth of what I was worth. You saved the Crown Prince of the Northern Summit, Theron said slowly. Under our laws, that creates a blood debt. You are owed a boon, anything within my power to grant. Hope flared in my chest, painful and unexpected. Anything within reason, he added. Let me go, the words tumbled out. Just let me go. Give me enough gold to start somewhere new, somewhere no one knows I'm broken. And I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. Your debt will be paid. His eyes narrowed. That's what you want? To run? I want to be free, I corrected. To live without being reminded every single day that I'm worthless. To exist somewhere that my broken wolf doesn't define my entire existence. No. The word hit me like a slap. What? No, he repeated. I won't grant you that boon. Anger surged through me, hot and sudden and unfamiliar. I'd been numb for so long that feeling rage felt almost foreign. You said asterisk anything asterisk within your power, I said. Within asterisk reason asterisk, he interrupted, and letting you leave is not reasonable. Why? I demanded, pushing myself fully upright, despite the way my head spun. Because you don't trust me? Because I might tell someone about your son? I don't even know what happened. One moment he was a cub, and then there was this roar and... My son is cursed. The words dropped into the space between us like stones into still water. Theron moved closer, each step deliberate. He can shift into his wolf form, but he cannot shift back. He's been trapped as a cub for 2 months. Every healer, every witch, every blood mage in the kingdom has tried to break it. Nothing works. I stared at him. That's not possible. Shifters can't get stuck. My son is stuck. His voice was hard as iron, and the curse is killing him. Every day he remains in wolf form, more of his humanity slips away. In another month, maybe 2, there won't be anything of my child left, just an animal wearing his shape. The horror of it settled over me. To be trapped in your wolf, unable to speak, unable to communicate, slowly losing yourself piece by piece. I'm sorry, I whispered, but I don't understand what that has to do with me. You touched him while he was in wolf form, and you have no wolf of your own. Theron crouched down, so we were eye level, and this close I could see the exhaustion carved into his face, the desperate edge beneath the control. Every shifter who touches him feeds into the curse, their wolf recognizing his, trapping him further. But your touch didn't hurt him, didn't strengthen the binding. Understanding crashed over me. You think I can help break the curse? I think you're the only one who might be able to touch him without making it worse. He stood abruptly, pacing to the fire. The witches say the curse must be weakened before it can be broken. That requires daily contact, daily reinforcement that he's not just a wolf, but every time a shifter tries, he regresses further. So you want me to stay? I said slowly. To be near your son, to help break this curse. Yes. And if I refuse? If I demand you honor the blood debt and let me go? He turned to face me, and the expression in his golden eyes was absolutely merciless. Then I will lock you in a tower until the curse is broken, or my son is dead. Either way, you're not leaving. The words should have terrified me, should have sent me scrambling for escape. But there was something about the raw desperation beneath his cruelty, the way his hands clenched at his sides like he was barely holding himself together. This wasn't a tyrant playing with power. This was a father watching his child die. If I agree, I said carefully. What are the terms? You'll live in the castle. You'll spend time with my son every day, reading to him, talking to him, reminding him he's more than an animal. You'll submit to the witches' examinations so they can study why your presence doesn't worsen the curse. He paused. And in exchange, you'll have everything you need: food, clothes, books, comfort. A life without judgment, without shame. His voice softened almost imperceptibly. A purpose beyond survival. Asterisk. A purpose. When was the last time anyone had suggested I might have a purpose? How long? I asked. Until the curse breaks. Or your son dies, I finished. And then? If it breaks, do I go free? If it breaks, I will grant you whatever boon you ask. Gold, land, title, anything. What about if it doesn't break? The question hung heavy between us. If he dies despite everything, what happens to me? Theron was quiet for a long moment. Then you're free regardless, he said finally. I won't punish you for failing at something impossible. There was something in his voice. Not quite kindness, but close to it. A recognition of shared helplessness. I thought about Silas's carriage, about the breeding halls and pleasure houses, about my father's hollow voice saying asterisk the debt is paid asterisk, about Garrett walking away, about a lifetime of being the broken thing everyone else worked around. I'll do it, I said. Not because you're forcing me, but because I understand what it feels like to be trapped in your own body, to have everyone see you as something you're not. His eyes met mine, and for just a moment, the cold calculation cracked. What I saw beneath was so raw, so utterly devastated, that I had to look away. Thank you, he said quietly. A knock at the door interrupted us. A young woman entered, petite, with auburn hair and the careful blank expression of a servant who'd learned to be invisible. The young prince is asking for her, Your Majesty, she said, voice carefully neutral. He won't eat unless she comes. Theron's jaw tightened. Take her. And as the servant, Lyra, she introduced herself, led me through corridors designed to intimidate, I realized something. I'd just agreed to stay in a castle with a desperate king and his dying son. I'd agreed to break a curse I didn't understand. I'd agreed to trade one prison for another. But this time, at least, I had a choice in it. This time, I mattered. The castle had a library. I discovered it on my 4th day while Riker, I'd learned his name through patient paw taps and head shakes, napped in a patch of sunlight streaming through my chamber windows. Lyra had mentioned it in passing. 3 floors down, West Wing. Can't miss it. And I'd felt my heart quicken with something dangerously close to hope. Books had always been my escape. When the pack whispered about my broken wolf, when Garrett looked through me instead of at me, when my father's disappointment grew too heavy to bear, I disappeared into stories. into worlds where broken things could still matter. The library doors were 15 feet tall, carved with intricate scenes of wolves running beneath stars. I pushed them open and stopped breathing. It was enormous. 3 stories of books rising toward a domed glass ceiling, spiral staircases connecting the levels, reading nooks tucked into alcoves, long tables scattered with open volumes. The smell hit me like a physical thing, paper and leather and dust and knowledge. Beautiful, isn't it? I spun. Theron stood behind me, moving with that unnatural shifter silence. He wore simpler clothes today, black shirt, dark pants, but somehow looked even more imposing without the royal trappings. "I didn't hear you," I said, pressing a hand to my racing heart. "I know." A ghost of something that might have been amusement touched his mouth. "You were too busy looking like someone who'd found sanctuary." Was that what this felt like? Sanctuary? "Riker's asleep," I said, feeling oddly defensive. "I thought I'd explore while he rested." "You don't need to justify yourself." Theron moved past me into the library, his large frame somehow fitting naturally among the shelves. "This place is yours to use as you wish. Everything here is." I followed slowly, fingers trailing along leather spines. "Why do you have so many books? I thought shifters preferred, I don't know, hunting, fighting, physical pursuits. Is that what they taught you in Thornvale?" He pulled a volume from a high shelf without looking. Clearly, he knew this place intimately. That shifters are just animals wearing human skin? They didn't have to teach it. I saw it every day. "Then your pack is made of fools." He set the book on a nearby table, something with a title in a language I didn't recognize. "The Northern Summit has the largest library in the shifter territories. Knowledge is power, always has been." I picked up the book he'd set down, studying the strange script. "What language is this?" "Old Lupine, the language the first shifters spoke." He moved to another shelf, pulling down 3 more volumes. "The curse on Riker uses Old Lupine binding magic. I've been trying to understand it, but my knowledge only goes so far." He looked exhausted. In the library's soft light, I could see the shadows under his eyes, the tightness around his mouth that spoke of sleepless nights and grinding worry. "When did it happen?" I asked quietly. "The curse." Theron was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. 2 months ago, there was an incident. A witch came to court, claiming she could enhance shifter abilities. She performed a demonstration on Riker. His hands clenched on the book he held. It was supposed to make his first shifts easier when he came of age. Instead, it trapped him. "Where is she now?" "The witch?" "Dead." The word was flat. "I executed her myself the moment I realized what she'd done. But she died laughing, saying the curse would hold until—" He stopped abruptly. "Until what?" His golden eyes met mine. "Until true love breaks it. The oldest, most impossible condition in any curse." I thought of every fairy tale I'd ever read. True love's kiss, true love's sacrifice, true love's devotion. Always true love. As if it were simple. As if it weren't the rarest, most fragile thing in existence. "Riker's only 7, I said. "He can't—" "That's not—" "I know." Theron's voice was rough, which is why I think the witch lied, or the curse is more complicated than it appears. There has to be another way to break it. There has to be. He looked so utterly helpless in that moment. This massive, powerful Alpha King, reduced to a desperate father grasping at impossible hope. "We'll find it," I heard myself say. "In these books. In the witch's knowledge. Somewhere. We'll find the answer." "Why do you care?" The question came out sharp. "You could leave. The blood debt is satisfied by your presence alone. You could demand I send you away with gold and—" And go where? I interrupted. Back to a world that sees me as broken. At least here I have a purpose. At least here. I stopped myself. At least here? He prompted. At least here, Riker doesn't look at me and see a failure. Understanding flickered across his face. You're not broken. You called me that yourself, 4 days ago. I was... He paused, seeming to struggle with words. I was repeating what I'd been told, what the report said. I shouldn't have. It was wrong. It was as close to an apology as I'd likely get from an Alpha King. Help me with these, he said, gesturing to the pile of books. If you can read Old Lupine, we can work faster. I can't read it. Then I'll teach you. So we spent the afternoon surrounded by books. Then's deep voice explaining the strange symbols and grammar of a dead language. He was patient in a way I didn't expect, repeating explanations, finding simpler examples, never making me feel stupid for not understanding immediately. And slowly, words began to take shape. Simple ones at first. Asterisk wolf, moon, blood, binding. You're a natural, Theren said, watching me work through a basic text. Most people take weeks to get this far. I've always been good with languages. I frowned at a particularly complex symbol. What's this one? That's asterisk devotion asterisk. But it has layers, not just loyalty, but willing sacrifice, choosing something even when the cost is high. Our eyes met over the page, and something passed between us. An understanding, a recognition. We both knew about devotion that costs too much. Kira! Riker's bark echoed from the corridor, followed by the scratch of claws on marble. He burst through the library doors, tail wagging frantically, and launched himself at me. I caught him with a laugh, stumbling back into a bookshelf. I'm here. I'm here. I was just learning something interesting. He sniffed at the books, then sneezed dramatically. He's never liked studying, Theren said, and there was real affection in his voice. Takes after his mother that way. She preferred the forest to the library. It was the first time he'd mentioned Riker's mother. I wanted to ask, where was she? Why wasn't she here helping? But the shuttered look that crossed his face stopped me. Come on, I said to Riker instead. Let's go find something more fun to do. We ended up in the gardens despite the cold. Riker raced through the snow, pouncing on drifts and tunneling beneath them like he was hunting. I followed more slowly, laughing at his antics. He seems happier, Theren said from behind me. I'd known he was there. I was learning to sense his presence, the weight of his attention. He's still a child, I said. He needs to play, curse or not. The healers said I shouldn't encourage his wolf behaviors, that it might make the curse stronger. The healers are idiots. The words escaped before I could stop them. I turned to face him, expecting anger. Instead, he looked intrigued. Explain. Riker isn't becoming an animal. He's trapped in an animal's body. There's a difference. I gestured to where the cub was now trying to catch snowflakes on his tongue. Denying his wolf nature won't make him more human. It'll just make him miserable. He needs to be allowed to be both, the boy and the wolf. That's what will keep him whole. Theren studied me with those penetrating golden eyes. You understand him. I understand what it's like to be caught between two worlds, never quite fitting in either. Because you can't shift. Because I'm not supposed to exist, I corrected. I have a shifter's senses, a shifter's strength and healing, but no wolf. I'm neither human nor true shifter. I'm the thing that proves the rules aren't absolute. People hate that. I don't hate it. The simple statement hung in the cold air between us. Why not? I asked. Because absolute rules are a lie. The world is more complex than we pretend. He moved closer. Close enough that I could see gold flecks in his amber eyes. You saved my son when you were dying. You came into a strange castle, threatened with imprisonment, and chose to stay anyway. You challenged the healers when they're wrong. You treat Riker like the person he is, not the animal he appears to be." He paused. "You're the furthest thing from broken I've ever met." My breath caught. No one had ever spoken to me like that. Like I was valuable. Like I mattered. "I don't know what to say," I whispered. "Then say nothing." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and brushed snow from my hair. The gesture was oddly gentle for such a large, dangerous man. "But know that I see you, Kira. Not the broken she-wolf, not the unwanted daughter. Asterisk you, asterisk." Riker chose that moment to barrel into both of us, breaking the tension. We stumbled apart, and Theron actually laughed, a real, genuine sound that transformed his stern face into something almost boyish. "All right, little terror," he said, scooping Riker up. "What mischief are you planning now?" The cub yipped and squirmed, clearly delighted to have his father's undivided attention. We spent the rest of the afternoon in the gardens, playing elaborate games of chase and hide-and-seek that left all of us breathless and covered in snow. For a few hours, it was possible to forget about curses and blood debts and impossible futures. For a few hours, we were just a family. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like coming home. That night, after Riker had finally exhausted himself and fallen asleep in his chambers, Theren invited me to his study. It was smaller than I expected, more intimate than the formal receiving rooms. Books lined the walls here too, but these were clearly well used. A fire crackled in the hearth. 2 chairs faced it, a small table between them set with wine and glasses. "Sit," Theren said, pouring wine the colour of rubies. "Please." I settled into one of the chairs, butter-soft leather that seemed to embrace me. The wine was sweet and warm, spreading heat through my chest. "I want to apologize," Theren said abruptly, "for how I treated you when you first woke, for the threats, for making you feel like a prisoner. You were desperate. I understand. Understanding doesn't make it right." He stared into his wineglass. "I've been not myself since the curse. Since before that, if I'm honest." "Riker's mother," I said quietly. It wasn't a question. "She died 2 years ago. Hunting accident." His voice was carefully controlled. One moment she was there, laughing, alive. The next... He drained his glass in one swallow. "I'm sorry. She would have liked you." A sad smile touched his mouth. Ara didn't care about protocol or proper behavior. She spoke her mind, challenged anyone who was wrong, and loved Riker with a fierceness that scared me sometimes. He looked at me. "You remind me of her. The way you don't back down. The way you see Riker as a person first. She sounds remarkable." She was. He poured more wine, his movements heavy with old grief. "After she died, I threw myself into being king, into duty and responsibility and making sure the kingdom ran perfectly. I thought if I could control everything else, I could protect Riker from more pain." His voice cracked. "But then the witch came and I failed him anyway. I let her near him. I trusted the wrong person. And now my son is trapped because I couldn't protect him." The words were raw, bleeding. "Theron, look at me." His golden eyes met mine, and I saw the guilt eating him alive. "This isn't your fault," I said firmly. "The witch lied. She manipulated. She chose to curse an innocent child. That's on her, not you." I should have known. "You're not all-powerful. You're just a father trying his best." I reached out, and before I could second-guess myself, took his hand. His fingers were warm and calloused against mine. "And you're doing everything possible to save him. That's what matters." He stared at our joined hands like he couldn't quite believe they were real. "How are you so wise?" he asked quietly. I'm not wise. I've just survived enough to know that sometimes terrible things happen and they're no one's fault. They just are asterisk. Like being born without a wolf. Exactly. We sat in comfortable silence, hands still clasped, watching the fire dance. It felt natural, this quiet intimacy, like we'd known each other far longer than a handful of days. But beneath the comfort, something else was building, something dangerous and electric that made my skin prickle every time his thumb traced small circles on the back of my hand. I was falling for him, and that terrified me more than any curse ever could. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm that felt almost like belonging. Mornings with Riker, reading, playing, teaching him new ways to communicate. I'd fashioned a board with letters that he could paw at, spelling out simple words. It was slow and frustrating for him, but the joy in his golden eyes when I understood what he was trying to say made every painstaking minute worthwhile. Afternoons in the library with Theren, poring over ancient texts, searching for any mention of curses like Riker's. We'd fallen into an easy partnership, him reading aloud in Old Lupine, me taking notes and asking questions, both of us occasionally dissolving into debate when we disagreed on interpretations. Evenings in his study, sharing wine and stories, those were my favourite hours. When the king's mask slipped and I got to see just Theren, the man who loved his son desperately, who missed his wife with an ache that never fully healed, who had a dry wit that caught me off guard and made me laugh until my sides hurt. And nights alone in my chambers, trying not to think about how much I looked forward to seeing him each day, trying not to notice how my heart raced when his hand brushed mine over a book, trying not to admit that I was falling for a man so far beyond my reach, he might as well have been the moon itself. 3 weeks in, Riker had his first breakthrough. We were in the gardens, our usual afternoon spot, when he suddenly froze mid-play. His small body went rigid, trembling. I dropped to my knees beside him. Riker, what's wrong? His golden eyes met mine, and I saw something shifting in them. Something trying to break through. Theren! I screamed toward the castle. The Alpha King appeared in seconds, moving with impossible speed. He saw Riker's state, and his face went white. What happened? I don't know. Riker's body convulsed. For a terrible moment I thought the curse was killing him right there, but then his form flickered. Just for an instant I could see the ghost of a boy superimposed over the wolf. Dark hair, his father's features, 7 years old and terrified. Then he was just a wolf again, collapsing in the snow. Riker! Theren gathered him up, pressing his ear to the cub's chest. He's breathing, heartbeat strong. I touched Riker's head gently. His eyes opened, exhausted, but aware. He licked my hand once. I'm okay. What did you do? Theren demanded, not angry, but desperate to understand. Right before he seized. What were you doing? Nothing different. We were just playing and I was laughing. And I tried to remember my exact words. I said, I wish I could hear your laugh. I bet it's wonderful. Understanding flickered across Theren's face. You reminded him he's human, that he has a human laugh, human voice. He looked down at his son with something like awe. He tried to shift back. But the curse stopped him, I said. It stopped him, but it didn't win completely. Theron's voice shook. That flicker, that moment where I saw my son's real face. That's the first progress we've had in 2 months. Riker stirred in his arms, then carefully pawed at my leg. The gesture was weak, but deliberate. What is it? I asked. He did it again. 5 taps, then a pause, 3 more taps. 8 letters? I guessed. He yipped softly. 2 words, 5 and 3. It took longer than usual. He was clearly exhausted, but eventually I understood. Asterisk. Thank you. Oh, Riker. I stroked his fur gently. You don't have to thank me. We're in this together, remember? He pressed his head against my chest, and I felt his small body relax. Within minutes, he was asleep. Take him inside, I said to Theren. He needs to rest. Come with us. It wasn't a command. It was a request, a need. So I followed. We settled Riker into his enormous bed, piling furs around him. He looked so small, so vulnerable, even with the progress he'd made. He's stronger with you here, Theren said quietly as we stood side by side, watching Riker sleep. He tries harder, fights more. He has something to fight for, I said, the possibility of being heard. Is that what you fight for? Being heard? I looked at him sharply. His golden eyes were fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. I used to, I admitted. I used to think if I could just make people understand that I was still valuable, still worth something despite being broken, then everything would be okay. But no one wanted to hear it. I want to hear it. The simple statement hit me like a physical blow. Why? I asked. Because you matter to me. He said it like it was obvious, like it wasn't the most devastating thing anyone had ever told me. Because in 3 weeks, you've become essential to this family. Because He stopped, jaw tightening. Because I look forward to seeing you every day, more than I should. My heart hammered against my ribs. I know. He turned away, putting distance between us. I know this is complicated. You're here because of a blood debt, not by choice. You're helping Riker, not courting his father. What are you feeling? The question escaped before I could stop it. He was silent for so long, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, voice rough, like I'm waking up after 2 years of sleepwalking, like the world has color again, like I want things I have no right to want. What things? You. He turned to face me, and the raw honesty in his expression stole my breath. I want to know everything about you. I want to hear your thoughts on every book we read. I want to make you laugh, because your laugh is the best sound I've heard in years. He stopped himself. But you should be free to choose your own path, not trapped here by debt and duty. I moved closer, closing the distance between us. What if I don't feel trapped? His eyes widened slightly. Kira, what if I look forward to our afternoons in the library? What if I go to sleep thinking about our evening conversations? What if I swallowed hard, gathering courage. What if I'm falling for you too and it terrifies me? Why does it terrify you? Because nothing good has ever stayed in my life. The admission cracked something open in my chest. Everyone I've ever cared about has left. My mother chose my father's decision over me. Garrett chose his pack's expectations over me. Even Mira, she didn't fight for me. No one fights for me. I would. 2 words, simple and absolute. You don't know that, I whispered. Yes, I do. He reached up slowly, giving me every chance to pull away, and cupped my face in his large hands. I would burn kingdoms for you, Kira. I would defy every law and tradition. Don't make promises you can't keep. I don't. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, infinitely gentle. I'm an Alpha King. My word is law. And I'm telling you, with everything I am, that you matter, that I see you, that if you choose to stay, not because of debt, but because you want to, I will spend every day proving you made the right choice. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I don't know how to believe that. Then let me show you. He leaned his forehead against mine, our breath mingling. Let me prove it, however long it takes. We stood like that, holding each other in the dim light of Riker's chamber. And something fundamental shifted between us. This wasn't just attraction. This wasn't just gratitude or convenience or forced proximity. This was real, and it was terrifying. A soft yip broke the moment. We pulled apart to find Riker awake, watching us with knowing golden eyes. If a wolf could smirk, he was doing it. "How long have you been awake?" Theron asked suspiciously. Riker just wagged his tail and pawed at me. 5 letters. Asterisk M-I-N-E. Asterisk. "Yours?" I laughed. "I'm your friend, Riker. I'm not anyone's possession." He shook his head and pawed again, more insistently, then pointed his nose at Theren, then back to me. Understanding dawned. "You're saying I'm part of your family?" Enthusiastic yipping and spinning. "Yes," Theron said softly. "You are." The declaration settled over me like a warm cloak. Asterisk family. Asterisk. I had a family again. But 3 days later, everything shattered. I was in the library when Lady Morgana appeared, the High Priestess I'd met briefly at Riker's presentation ceremony. She moved like smoke, silent and inevitable. "Kira," she said, settling into the chair across from me, "we need to talk." My stomach dropped. "About what?" "About what happens next." She folded her hands primly. "Riker can shift now, but the curse isn't fully broken. He can only hold his human form for a few hours before exhaustion forces him back. That's progress, certainly, but it's not freedom. We're working on it. Every day he gets stronger." "Every day the kingdom gets more nervous," Morgana interrupted. "An alpha king whose heir is half cursed is vulnerable. Enemies see weakness. Allies see instability." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the council has been meeting." Her ice-blue eyes held mine. "And they've come to a conclusion about what's needed to break the curse completely." The way she said it made dread crawl up my spine. "Tell me." "The curse was laid with old lupine magic. The answer to the riddle, love, was correct. But curses of this magnitude don't break from love alone. They break from sacrifice." She leaned forward. "Specifically, they break when the one who provides the catalyst surrenders what they value most." I didn't understand. Then I did. "No. The curse feeds on attachment, on dependence. As long as Riker relies on you to maintain his human form, the curse has roots. You have to sever those roots by removing yourself entirely." "That doesn't make sense. Love doesn't work that way." "Old lupine curses do." Morgana pulled out a scroll, spreading it on the table. It was covered in the angular script I'd been learning. "This is the original curse documentation. Here." She pointed to a passage. "It says the binding will persist until the catalyst of love releases the beloved through willing sacrifice." I stared at the words, my mind racing. Sacrifice doesn't have to mean leaving. It could mean anything. It means giving up what you most want for the good of the one you love. Morgana's voice was gentle now. "Kira, everyone can see it. You love Theren. You love Riker. You found a family here. A home. Leaving will destroy you." "Then I won't leave. Then Riker will never be fully free." She rolled up the scroll. "He'll be trapped in this half-state forever. Eventually the strain will kill him. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but within a year. 2 at most." Her eyes were pitiless. "You'll watch him die by degrees, knowing you could have saved him." I pushed back from the table, standing on shaking legs. "Does Theren know about this?" "The council presented their findings this morning. He's with them now." She stood as well. "He's refusing to even consider it, of course. Says he'll find another way. But Kira, there is no other way. The magic is clear. I need to talk to him." "He's in the throne room, but be warned, the council is demanding an answer. They're threatening to declare Riker unfit to inherit if the curse isn't fully broken within the month." I ran. Through corridors I now knew by heart, past guards who'd learned to nod respectfully. Up the grand staircase to the throne room's massive doors. They were closed, but I could hear raised voices inside. "I cannot ask this of her." Theren's voice, raw with fury. I won't! Your Majesty, be reasonable? Reasonable? A crash, like something being thrown. You want me to choose between my son's freedom and the woman I love? How is that reasonable? It's not a choice. It's the only solution. I pushed open the doors. The throne room was vast, high ceilings, marble floors. Then's throne on a raised dais. A dozen alphas and advisors stood in a semicircle before him. All turned to stare as I entered. Then's face was a mask of rage and desperation. Kira, is it true? I asked, walking forward. My voice echoed in the enormous space. Will leaving break the curse? We don't know that for certain. But the magic suggests it, I said, cutting off whoever had spoken. Willing sacrifice. The catalyst releases the beloved. That's what the curse requires. Kira, don't. Theron stepped down from the dais, moving toward me. How long does Riker have? I asked Morgana, who stood among the council. If I stay? A year? Maybe 2, before the strain becomes too much. And if I leave? The curse should break within days, a week at most. I looked at Theron, really looked at him, saw the fear and fury and helpless grief in his eyes. I'll go, I said quietly. No. He was in front of me in an instant, hands gripping my shoulders. No, I forbid it. I'm the king and... Riker is your son, I interrupted. Your heir, the future of this kingdom. You're my future, he said desperately. You and Riker both. I won't choose. You're not choosing. I am. Tears streamed down my face, but my voice was steady. I'm choosing Riker's life, his freedom. Kira, please. If I stay, I get to be happy for a year while watching him die. I forced the words out. Or I leave now and he lives. He gets to grow up. To be the king he's meant to be. To fall in love and have children and live a full life. My voice broke. That's not a choice. That's just math. I can't lose you. His voice was wrecked. Not now. Not when I finally... I know. I kissed him, tasting salt from both our tears. I know. And I'm sorry. But you taught me what love really means, what choosing someone means. I pulled back, meeting his eyes. It means wanting their happiness more than your own. The council is satisfied with this solution, one of the alphas said, cold and detached. The broken she-wolf will leave within 3 days. That gives the prince time to adjust. Shut up. Theron's voice dropped into something deadly. All of you, get out. Your Majesty, out! The council fled. Even Morgana departed, though she gave me a long, measuring look before leaving. When we were alone, Theron pulled me against him, holding so tight I could barely breathe. There has to be another way, he said into my hair. Please, Kira, please don't do this. I have to. I wrapped my arms around him. You'd do the same for Riker. You'd sacrifice anything. Not you. I can't sacrifice you. Then I'll do it for you. I pulled back enough to see his face. Let me do this. Let me save him. It's the only thing I can give him. The only thing I can give you that actually matters. You matter. His life matters more. The truth of it settled over me. I was dead in that snow, Theron. Dead and forgotten. These months with you, with Riker, they've been borrowed time. A gift. But Riker's whole life is ahead of him. I can't be the reason he loses that. Theron made a sound like something breaking. He buried his face in my neck, shoulders shaking. We stood like that, holding each other, until a small voice interrupted. Kira? We turned. Riker stood in the doorway, human form, wearing the small clothes that had been made for his shifted body. His golden eyes were wide with fear. Riker, I said, trying to smile. How long have you been... I heard. He walked forward slowly. You're leaving? Because of me? Not because of you, I said firmly, kneeling to his level. Asterisk. For asterisk you. That's different. No. He shook his head, tears starting. No, I don't. I don't want you to go. I'll stay like this. Partly cursed. I don't care. But I care. I cupped his small face. Riker, you deserve to be completely free. To shift whenever you want. To be strong and healthy and whole. But you're my family, he whispered. You can't. You're my mum. The word shattered me. Oh, Riker. I pulled him into my arms. I'll always be part of you. Always. Even when I'm gone, that bond doesn't break. That's not the same. I know. I held him while he cried, feeling Theron's hand heavy on my shoulder. I know it's not fair. I know it hurts. But sometimes love means letting go. I don't want to let go, Riker sobbed. Neither do I. Theron knelt beside us, wrapping us both in his arms. The three of us stayed like that. A family breaking apart, trying to memorize the feeling of being whole. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that this sacrifice would break me in ways I'd never heal from. But it would save him. And that was enough. The cottage was perfect. That's what made it unbearable. Theron had arranged everything before I left. A small stone house on the edge of the eastern forests, far from any pack territory. Isolated enough that no one would bother me, but close enough to civilization that I could trade for supplies when needed. It had a well-stocked library, a garden that would flourish in spring, and enough gold hidden beneath the floorboards to last me several lifetimes. Everything I'd ever wanted. Except the two people who made any of it matter. I'd been there 3 days when the first letter arrived. A raven landed on my windowsill, a small scroll tied to its leg. I recognized the seal immediately. The black wolf on silver. My hands shook as I opened it. Asterisk Kira. Asterisk Riker held his human form for 8 hours yesterday. No exhaustion, no flickering. The healers say the curse is weakening rapidly. Asterisk. He asks about you constantly. I tell him you're safe and thinking of him. I hope that's true. Asterisk. I miss you. I know I shouldn't write that. I know this separation is necessary, but I can't pretend I don't feel the absence of you like a missing limb. Asterisk. Yours always. Asterisk T. Asterisk. I read it 17 times before I could bring myself to write back. My response was short. Safe. I told him I was glad about Riker's progress. I didn't mention that I cried myself to sleep every night, or that the cottage felt like a beautiful tomb, or that I woke up reaching for him and found only empty space. Some truths were too raw to share. The letters continued, once a week at first, then more frequently. Theron told me about Riker's progress, how he could shift at will now, how his strength was returning, how he was catching up on the childhood the curse had stolen. He told me about the kingdom, about political maneuverings and visiting dignitaries, and the endless responsibility of being king. He never mentioned moving on, never said he'd found someone else, but he also never asked me to return. And slowly, painfully, I started to build a life in my isolation. I tended the garden, coaxing vegetables from the rich soil. I read everything in the library, then traded for more books in the nearest village, a half-day walk. I taught myself to cook properly, to mend clothes, to exist in the quiet solitude of my own company. I learned to be alone, but I never learned to stop hurting. 6 weeks after I left, a different raven arrived. This one bore Morgana's seal, the crescent moon of the priestesses. Asterisk Kira. Asterisk. The curse is broken, completely. Riker is free. Asterisk. I thought you should know. Asterisk. The kingdom celebrates. The council is satisfied. Asterisk. And the Alpha King has not smiled once since you left. Asterisk. Whatever that's worth. M. I read the letter 3 times, then carefully burned it. Riker was free. That's what mattered. That's what I'd sacrificed everything for. The fact that my heart felt like it was being crushed in a vice, that I sobbed until I couldn't breathe. That was just the price of love. I'd known it would cost me everything. I just hadn't known how long forever would feel. 3 months in, Then's letters changed. Not dramatically, just small shifts in tone. More formal, more distant, like he was slowly learning to let go. Asterisk Kira. Asterisk Riker. Starts proper combat training next week. He's nervous, but excited. Asterisk. The spring council meeting went well. Several territorial disputes were resolved peacefully. Asterisk. I hope you're well. No more asterisk yours always. No more mentions of missing me, just updates, polite and careful. I told myself it was good, healthy, exactly what needed to happen. I told myself I was happy for him. I almost believed it. 6 months after I left, I heard the first rumours. I'd gone to the village for supplies, flour, salt, new candles. The merchant was a chatty woman named Bess, who loved gossip. "Did you hear?" she said, bagging my purchases. "The Alpha King up north is getting married." My heart stopped. What? Well, that's the rumour anyway. Some princess from the Western Reaches. Beautiful, they say. A perfect match for... "Oh, are you all right? You've gone pale." "I'm fine." I forced coins into her hand. "Thank you." I made it halfway back to the cottage before I had to stop and vomit into the bushes. Asterisk married. Asterisk. He was getting married. Of course he was. He was an Alpha King. He needed a queen. Someone who could give him more heirs. Someone who could shift and fight and fulfill all the duties I never could. Someone who wasn't broken. I told myself I had no right to be devastated, that I'd left, that I'd chosen this, that he deserved happiness. But knowing something intellectually and accepting it emotionally were two very different things. That night, I didn't write back to his latest letter, or the one after that. What was the point? He was moving on, building a new life. He didn't need letters from the woman who used to matter. 8 months in, Lyra appeared at my door. I almost didn't recognize her. She was dressed for travel, not in her servant's uniform, but her warm eyes were the same. "Kira," she said, breathless, "can I come in?" I let her inside, numb with shock. "How did you find me?" "The king told me where you were, before I left." She settled at my small table, accepting tea with grateful hands. "I don't work at the castle anymore." "Why not?" "Because I couldn't watch it anymore." Her voice was thick with emotion. Watch him slowly dying inside while pretending everything was fine. Watch Riker asking about you every day. Watch the whole castle pretending that losing you wasn't destroying them both. But the marriage? What marriage? Lyra looked genuinely confused. The princess from the Western Reaches. Bess said, "Oh, asterisk that." Asterisk. Lyra waved dismissively. Rumour. The Western Reaches did send a delegation proposing an alliance marriage. The king refused rather spectacularly, from what I heard. Told them he was already spoken for. Hope flared in my chest, dangerous and painful. "But he hasn't asked me to return." "Because he thinks you don't want to." Lyra leaned forward. "Kira, your letters stopped. He thinks you've moved on, that you're building a new life and don't want to be dragged back into castle politics and royal duties." "That's not... I thought he was moving on." "You're both idiots," Lyra said fondly. "Two people desperately in love, convinced the other doesn't want them anymore. He said he'd ask me to come back when enough time had passed. And you promised you'd try, but you stopped writing." She squeezed my hand. "Kira, he's not moving on. He's barely surviving. He does his duty, he cares for Riker. And then he locks himself in his study with your letters and pretends no one can hear him crying. The image broke me. I didn't know. Now you do. Lyra stood. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? I spent 3 days wrestling with the question. Part of me wanted to run back immediately, to throw myself at his feet and beg forgiveness for the silence, for the distance, for not being brave enough to believe we could have a future. But another part, the part that had been broken and discarded too many times, whispered caution. What if Lyra was wrong? What if Theren had just been kind to a former servant? What if returning would be awkward and painful, and prove that some sacrifices couldn't be undone? On the 4th day, a new letter arrived. Then's handwriting, but different. Rushed. Almost frantic. Asterisk Kira. Asterisk asterisk. I don't know if you're still reading these. You haven't responded in 2 months. Maybe you've moved on. Maybe you found happiness in your freedom. Asterisk. I hope you have. Asterisk. But I need to tell you something, even if you never respond. There's a ceremony next week, Riker's official presentation as Crown Prince, the moment we formally announce that the curse is completely broken and he's fit to inherit. Asterisk. He asked if you'd be there. Asterisk. I told him I didn't know, that you might have other commitments. Asterisk. But Kira, I want you there. Not for ceremony or duty, or because the blood debt requires it. I want you there because you're family, because none of this means anything without you. Asterisk. And if you don't come, I'll understand. I'll know it means you've chosen your own path, and I'll be happy for you. Even if it kills me. Asterisk. But if there's any part of you that wants to try, that thinks maybe we could build something together, even after everything, please come. Asterisk. I love you. I never stopped. I never will. Asterisk. Please come home. Asterisk. Yours always. Asterisk. They're an asterisk. I read the letter once, twice, 20 times. Then I started packing. The journey back took 3 days. I could have hired a fast carriage, but I needed the time to think, to prepare, to figure out what I'd say when I saw him again. In the end, I had nothing. Just hope and terror and love, so fierce it hurt to breathe. I arrived at the castle gates on the morning of the ceremony. Guards I didn't recognize challenged me until an older one, someone who'd been there during my time, recognized me and waved me through. Lady Kira, he said, grinning. We'd hoped you'd come. The castle was transformed, banners everywhere, people rushing about in formal clothes, the energy of a major celebration thrumming through the air. I felt completely out of place in my simple travel clothes, dust-covered and exhausted. Kira? I turned. Riker stood in the corridor, no longer the small 7-year-old I'd left. He was bigger now, taller, his features more defined, growing into the king he'd someday be. But his eyes, those golden eyes, were exactly the same. Riker, I breathed. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he ran. I caught him, stumbling back as he crashed into me. He was almost too big to lift now, but I managed, holding him tight while he clung to me. You came, he said, voice muffled against my shoulder. I was scared you wouldn't. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry I stayed away so long. You're here now. He pulled back, grinning through tears. That's what matters. Father's going to... He stopped, eyes widening. He doesn't know you're here, does he? No. Oh, this is going to be asterisk good. Asterisk. Riker grabbed my hand. Come on, the ceremony starts in an hour. You need to... Riker. I looked terrible. Lyra, he bellowed. The former servant appeared from around a corner, smiling like she'd expected this. Thought you might need help, she said. Come on, I kept your old chambers ready, just in case. They dragged me through the castle, Riker chattering the whole way about everything I'd missed. His training, his studies, the new foal in the stables he'd named after me. You named a horse Kira? She's beautiful and stubborn and doesn't listen to anyone, he said matter-of-factly. Just like you. Despite everything, I laughed. Lyra worked miracles. Within 40 minutes, I was clean, dressed in a gown that fit perfectly. Deep green, elegant, but not ostentatious. And my hair was arranged in a style that made me look almost regal. He's going to lose his mind, Lyra said, stepping back to admire her work. What if this is a mistake? I asked suddenly. What if too much time has passed? What if... Kira. She gripped my shoulders. Stop. You love him. He loves you. Everything else is just details. Easy for her to say. She wasn't about to walk into a throne room full of alphas and dignitaries and face the man she'd abandoned. But I'd come this far. I could be brave a little longer. The throne room was packed, every seat filled, people standing along the walls. The air buzzed with anticipation. I slipped in through a side entrance, staying near the back. No one noticed me. All eyes were on the front, where Theron stood beside his throne. He looked older. Not much, but there were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. A weight to his shoulders that spoke of lonely months and heavy responsibility. He wore full royal regalia, black and silver, a crown of twisted metal that looked more like a burden than an honor. And he looked exhausted. The ceremony began. Formal words about bloodlines and duty and the future of the kingdom. Riker was presented, standing straight and proud, every inch the prince he was meant to be. And with the curse fully broken, the herald announced, Prince Riker is confirmed as the crown prince and heir to the Northern Summit. Applause thundered through the room. Theron placed a smaller crown on Riker's head, a circlet of silver. Then he spoke, voice carrying through the enormous space. My son has faced darkness that would break most adults, he said. And he survived because of courage, determination, and... His voice cracked almost imperceptibly. And because someone believed in him when no one else could. Riker was scanning the crowd, clearly looking for me. Someone taught him that being trapped doesn't mean being lost, Theron continued. That love is worth fighting for. That sacrifice is sometimes the truest form of strength. He paused. I wish she were here to see this moment, to see the man her courage helped create. Father, Riker said, loud enough to be heard. She is asterisk here. Then's head snapped up. What? Riker pointed directly at me. She came. Every head in the room turned. Theron's eyes found mine across the distance, and the expression on his face, shock and hope and desperate relief, made my knees weak. Kira, he breathed. And then he was moving. Stepping down from the dais, crossing the throne room with long strides. The crowd parted before him. He stopped in front of me, close enough to touch, but not touching, like he was afraid I'd disappear if he reached for me. You're here, he said. I got your letter. I didn't think... I thought you'd moved on. Never. The word came out fierce. I stopped writing because I heard you were getting married. I thought you didn't need... I'm not getting married. He did touch me then, hands cupping my face. There's only you. There's only ever been you. I'm sorry I stayed away so long. I was scared. I know. His thumb brushed my cheek. I was scared too. But you're here now. I'm here now, I confirmed. He kissed me, right there in front of the entire court. The Alpha King kissed me like I was air and he'd been drowning. The throne room erupted, gasps and whispers and shocked exclamations. I didn't care. I kissed him back, pouring a year of loneliness and longing into it, and felt pieces of my broken heart start to knit back together. When we finally broke apart, Theron rested his forehead against mine. Don't leave again, he whispered. Please, I can't survive losing you twice. I won't, I promised. I'm home. Finally. Mum! Riker crashed into both of us, wrapping his arms around us in a fierce hug. You came back. You really came back. Of course I did, I said, holding him tight. I promised I'd try, remember? Is that a yes? Theron asked suddenly. To the question I asked before you left. Will you stay? I looked at him. This fierce, powerful, broken and healed again Alpha King, who loved me despite every reason not to. I looked at Riker, this brave, beautiful boy who'd fought his way free of a curse and called me Mum. I looked at the throne room full of witnesses, at the life I'd walked away from, and somehow found my way back to. Yes, I said simply. Yes to everything. And for the first time in a year, I felt whole. 3 weeks later, we married in the castle gardens where Riker used to play, surrounded by family and the few people whose opinions actually mattered. Morgana officiated, speaking words in old Lupine about souls recognizing each other across lifetimes. When Theron kissed me, when he took my hand and declared before witnesses that I was his chosen mate, his queen, his forever, I felt something shift in the very air around us. Power, recognition, the universe itself acknowledging our bond. And as I stood there with my family, my broken, beautiful, impossible family, I realized something. I wasn't broken anymore. Maybe I never had been. Maybe I'd just been waiting to find the people who could see me whole. Hey, family. Thank you for staying until the end. This story wasn't just about Kira finding love. It was about her discovering that her worth was never determined by the people who failed to see it. That different doesn't mean damaged, that sometimes the most broken hearts beat the strongest. If you're watching this and you've ever felt worthless, cast aside, or told you weren't enough, I want you to know something. You are seen, you are valued, and your story isn't over yet. Subscribe to this channel if you believe outcasts deserve happy endings too, because there are real people out there feeling broken, feeling worthless, feeling like Kira did, who need to see that their journey matters. Hit that like button if this story broke you and rebuilt you at the same time. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's been told they're not enough, someone who's still waiting to find their family. And drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever sacrificed something precious for someone you loved? Have you ever been the outcast who found belonging? Your story matters. I see you. This is our community. A place where different isn't wrong, where broken things become beautiful, where love, messy and imperfect and brave, is enough to change everything. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing these stories matter. Until next time, family, keep fighting. Keep believing. Keep knowing your worth. You deserve your happy ending too.